Hello friends, my name is Yogesh Patidar and I am here to discuss about the case study on Unix and Linux operating system. First of all, we have to discuss that what is Unix. Unix is a powerful operating system initially developed by Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie at AT&T Bell Laboratories in 1970s. Unix operating system was made in 1970s at AT&T Bell Laboratories. It is prevalent among scientific, engineering, and academic institutions due to its most appreciative features like multitasking, means operating system where it is able to run multiple processes simultaneously, flexibility, and many more. In Unix, the file system is a hierarchical structure of files and directories where user can store and retrieve information using the files. In Unix operating system, the user use file system to store the data and information. The Unix operating system was born in 1970s. AT&T Bell Labs released an operating system called Unix, written in C. Unix was the first operating system which was written in high-level language. It began as a one-man project under the leadership of Ken Thompson of Bell Labs. Since in its initial days, Unix was not so popular, but nowadays it becomes most widely used operating system. Unix is a proprietary operating system and means Unix is licensed version operating system. The Unix operating system works on command line interface, but recently there have been development of graphical user interface on Unix system. Means previously Linux was works on command line interface, which means each and every operation is done only using given commands, but later on graphical user interface was developed which is very helpful for user to use Linux operating system. Now we will talk about the features of Unix operating system. Unix operating system is multi-user multitasking operating system, means we can where multi-user means you is a type of operating system where multiple user uses same resources and same operating system, and multitasking means where the user is able to run multiple processes simultaneously. It can be used as the master control program in workstations and servers. Means we can control the server with Unix operating system. Hundred of commercial applications are available in Unix operating system. In its heydays, Unix was rapidly adopted and became the standard operating system in universities. Means when it is very popular in 80s or 90s, it was used as a standard operating system in universities. Like in present time, we use Windows operating system. So in 80s or 90s, Unix operating system was used in universities. Now we will talk about the basic features of Unix operating system. As we can see in pictures, the Unix operating system perform many tasks like multitasking, command structure, file security and protection, which protect our file, communication, accounting, Unix tool and utilities. There are many Unix tools which is very helpful for user. Open source, it is open source, portable, multi-user. Now we will talk about the limitations of Unix operating system. The unfriendly task, inconsistent and non-mnemonic user interface. Unix is not friendly with the user, so some difficulties faced by the user while using Unix operating system. Unix operating system is designed for a slow computer system, so you can't expect fast performance. Since Linux was designed for slow computer, so we can't use it for high performance and fast performance. Shell interface can be treacherous because typing mistake can destroy files. Since the shell interface of Unix operating system was case sensitive, so difficult so mistake in typing can destroy our files. Versions on various machines are slightly different, so it lacks consistency. Means its version vary on different hardware, so there is inconsistency. Unix does not provide any assured hardware interrupt response time, so it does not support real-time response time systems. We can't run real-time application on Unix operating system. Now we will talk about Linux operating system. Just like Windows 7, Windows 8, Linux is an operating system. Linux is an operating system built by the Linus Torvalds at the University of Helsinki in 1991. The Linux name comes from the Linux kernel. It is the software on a computer which enables applications and the users to access the devices on the computer to perform some specific functions. The Linux operating system relays instruction from an application from the computer's processor and send results back to the application via the Linux operating system. It can be installed on a different type of computer, mobile phones, tablet, video games, consoles, etc. Since Linux is very user friendly in compared to Unix operating system, it can easily installed on computer, mobile phones, tablets, video games, consoles, etc. Since it is open source and free, so anybody can use it. The development of Linux is one of the most prominent example of free and open source software collaboration. Today, many companies and number of individuals have released their own version of operating system based on the Linux kernel. Now we will talk about the features of Linux operating system. It supports multitasking, means where user is able to run multiple processes simultaneously. It can easily coexist along with other operating system. Means we can easily install another operating system with the Linux operating system with the help of disk partition. Program consistent of one or more processes and each process have one or more threads. It can run multiple user programs and individual accounts are protected because of appropriate authorization. Since the authorization of Linux operating system is very appropriate, so individual accounts are protected. Linux is a replica of Unix but does not use its code. Since Linux operating system is a copy of Unix operating system but it does not use the code of Unix operating system because it is graphical user interface operating system, so it can't use the code of Unix operating system. Now we will discuss about the limitations of Linux operating system. There is no standard edition of Linux, means since Linux is a free source, so it is used as different companies, so it is used by different companies according to their needs in different manner. So there is no standard edition for Linux operating system. Linux has patchier support for drivers which may result in misfunctioning of the entire system. Since Linux has support for different drivers, so its performance varies from machine to machine which leads to some problem. Linux is for new user at least not as easy to use as Windows. Since Linux is not easy as Windows operating system because we need to use sudo act command. Many of the programs we are using for Windows will only run on Linux only with the help of complicated emulator, for example Microsoft Office. For example, if we need to use Microsoft Office on Linux operating system, then we need to use complicated emulator which is very complicated. Linux is best suitable for corporate user. It's much harder to introduce in a home setting. Means Linux is not suitable for home setting due to its difficulties. Now we will discuss the difference between Linux and Unix operating system. First, definition. If we talk about Linux, Linux is an open source operating system which is freely available to everyone. On the other hand, Unix is an operating system which can be only used by its copywriters. Means Unix is not a open source operating system. Second, user. Nowadays, Linux is in great demand. Anyone can use Linux, whether a home user, developer, or a student. On the other hand, Unix was developed mainly for servers, workstations, and mainframes because it is not an open source. So Unix is only used by servers, workstations, and mainframes. If we talk about uses, so Linux is used everywhere from server, PC, smartphone, tablet to mainframes and supercomputers. And on the other hand, Unix is used in server, workstations and personal computers. If we talk about development, so Linux is an open source. It is developed by sharing and collaboration of codes by worldwide developers. Since Linux is an open source operating system, so it's updated by thousands of developers all over the world. But on the other hand, Unix was developed by AT&T Labs and various commercial vendors and non-profit organization. Means new update is only developed by AT&T Labs and various commercial vendors. If we talk about the security, so both the Unix and Linux operating system is highly secured. And if we talk about error detection and solution, so Linux is open source. Whenever a user posts any kind of threat, developers from all over the world start working on it, and hence it provide a faster solution. Hence we get faster solution on Linux operating system because it is free and thousands of developers from all over the world working on it. On the other hand, Unix, we have to wait from some time to for the problem to be resolved because it is not an operating system, so it takes time to be time for the problem to be resolved. If we talk about the viruses, so Linux has had about 60 to 100 viruses till date, which are currently not spreading, and on the other hand, there are about 80 to 120 viruses reported till date in Unix operating system. Thank you.